The room was filled with a silence that felt heavier than the walls themselves. In the corner sat the computer, a machine that once hummed with life and light. Now it was a cold monument to a young man who had departed too soon. His friends stood at the threshold, hesitant to cross into his private digital world. Every object in the room seemed to vibrate with the memory of Carlo's presence. They wondered if touching the keyboard would be an intrusion or a final goodbye. If this story touched you, leave a like and join us in this journey. The dust had barely settled on the monitor, reflecting the grey light of morning. To the world, Carlo Acutis was a genius, a boy who mastered the invisible code. To them, he was simply the friend who laughed and spoke of the eternal. They remembered how his fingers flew across the keys with such divine purpose. Now those same keys were silent, waiting for a touch that would never come. The air was thick with the scent of old books and the lingering traces of incense. They felt a strange calling to turn it on, as if a hand guided them. Starting the machine felt like waking a sleeping giant from a long, deep slumber. The soft whirring of the fan echoed like a mechanical heartbeat in the quiet. The screen flickered to life, casting a pale blue glow over their tired faces. For a moment, they saw his reflection in the glass, a trick of the light. Their hearts raced with a mixture of profound grief and an unexplainable hope. They knew that within this hard drive lived the thoughts of a modern saint. Subscribe so you don't miss stories like this, for we are just beginning now. They navigated through folders they had seen him organize many times before. There were projects for the parish, lines of code for his beloved exhibitions. Everything seemed perfectly in order, a testament to his disciplined young mind. But as they delved deeper, a sense of mystery began to cloud the room. Something felt different about the way the system was behaving that specific day. It was as if the computer was leading them toward a path they hadn't seen. A lingering feeling of anticipation began to replace the sorrow in their chests. They reached the directory where Carlo kept his most personal, private reflections. The folders were named with simple, humble titles that reflected his pure heart. But in the bottom corner of the screen, a new icon appeared suddenly. It was a file that none of them remembered seeing during his final days. The date modified was suspiciously close to the hour of his last breath. How could he have created something so complex while in such physical pain? The mystery of his strength began to weigh heavily on their curious minds. They tried to click the file, but the system prompted them for a code. This was unusual for Carlo, who always shared his knowledge so very freely. It was a gatekeeper, a digital lock protecting a secret meant for later. The friends looked at each other, realizing this was not a simple accident. He had planned this moment with the precision of a master of the soul. The password hint was a single word that sent shivers down their spines. Stay until the end, because the ending changes everything for your life too. The word was Eucharist, the center of his entire existence on this earth. As they typed the letters, the room seemed to grow warmer and brighter. The lock vanished, and the folder opened to reveal a single, large file. It was not a document, nor was it a simple photo of a miracle. It was something far more sophisticated, a hidden layer of his deep work. They realized that Carlo had been living a double life in the spirit. The genius of his mind was only a shadow of the fire in his soul. One of his friends reached out, his hand trembling as he moved the mouse. They felt the weight of the responsibility that was now placed upon them. What if this file contained a truth that the world was not ready for? What if Carlo had seen something from the other side before he left? The screen pulsed with a soft light that seemed to synchronize with them. They were no longer just observers. They were witnesses to a grand design. Comment if this message spoke to you as we enter the hidden depths. The file size was massive, suggesting hours of data or high-resolution images. It was titled The Gate, a name that suggested a transition or passage. They whispered a quick prayer, asking for the strength to see the truth. The silence of the room was now replaced by a spiritual tension, a weight. They felt as though Carlo was standing right behind them, smiling in peace. His legacy was not just in the past, but in what was about to open. The discovery was inches away, and their lives were about to change forever. As the progress bar moved, the atmosphere in the house shifted entirely. Neighbors reported later that a strange light was seen through the window. The friends didn't notice. They were focused on the revelation of the screen. The file was finally ready to be launched into the world of the living. With a final click, the digital silence was broken by a sound of light. The first image appeared, and the room fell into a state of pure shock. What they saw was the beginning of a mystery that defies all human logic. The image on the screen was not a photograph, but a complex map. It looked like a web of light, connecting points across the entire globe. The friends leaned in, their eyes wide as they traced the glowing lines. Every node on the map represented a place where Carlo had focused. It was a digital cartography of the soul, spanning continents and vast oceans. They realized this file was a living project, still pulsing with energy. If this story touched you, leave a like as we uncover this secret. As they moved the cursor, they realized the map was deeply encrypted. Each time they tried to zoom in, a new layer of code appeared. Carlo had used his advanced skills to create a labyrinth for the curious. It wasn't meant to be easy, it was meant to be a spiritual test. The code itself was beautiful, resembling a stained glass window in its logic. They spent hours trying to understand the sequence he had carefully left. The complexity was far beyond what any teenager should have been capable of. One friend, a fellow programmer, noticed a pattern in the binary sequences. The zeros and ones were not random. They followed a rhythmic, holy pace. "It's a prayer," he whispered, his voice cracking with a sudden emotion. Carlo had woven the rosary into the very fabric of the encryption keys. To unlock the next layer, they had to understand his spiritual rhythm. It was as if he was teaching them how to pray through the machine. Share this with someone who needs to hear about this modern miracle. They began to follow the pattern, entering the values that matched the prayers. With every successful entry, a new door in the software began to open. The room felt like it was expanding, losing its physical earthly boundaries. The encryption was a bridge between the digital world and the divine. They felt a sense of urgency, as if the file was reacting to them. The deeper they went, the more they felt their own doubts fading away. They were no longer just users, they were pilgrims on a digital path. Suddenly, a video file appeared within the encrypted structure of the folder. It was labeled with a date that occurred after Carlo had been hospitalized. The friends froze, knowing he was unable to move during those final days. Yet, the metadata confirmed the file was created in those dark hours. The mystery deepened, casting a shadow of awe over the entire small room. How could a boy in such agony create something so technically perfect? Stay until the end, because the ending changes everything for your life. The icon for the video was a small, flickering flame that seemed real. They hesitated to play it, sensing the weight of the revelation inside. The encrypted path had led them to a threshold they feared to cross. Inside this file lay the words of a boy who was touching heaven. They looked at the bedside clock, noticing the time had strangely stopped. The world outside seemed to disappear, leaving only the glowing blue screen. Their hearts beat in unison as they prepared for the next great shock. They noticed that the encryption was designed to delete itself after opening. This was a one-time revelation, a message intended for this exact moment. Carlo had ensured that the secret would only be seen by those he chose. The responsibility felt like a physical weight upon their young shoulders. They realized that what they were about to see would change history. The hidden file was not just data, it was a living, breathing testament. Subscribe so you don't miss stories like this, for the truth is near. Do we open it? the youngest friend asked, his eyes filled with tears. They knew there was no turning back once the code was fully broken. The path had been long, winding through the genius of a young saint. Every line of code had been a step closer to the heart of God. They saw the reflection of their own souls in the dark of the glass. The encryption finally yielded, making a soft sound like a ringing bell. The final barrier was gone, and the secret was ready to be seen. A window popped up with a final message from the programmer of God. "Do not be afraid of the light you are about to witness here." The words were written in Carlo's favorite font, simple and very clear. It was a personal greeting from the beyond. A hand reached out. The friends felt a peace that surpassed all human and earthly understanding. The encrypted path had served its purpose, preparing their hearts for more. Comment if this message spoke to you as the video begins to play. The first frame of the hidden video began to render on the old monitor. It started with a black screen and the sound of a very deep breath. The sound was so clear, it felt like someone was breathing in the room. The friends stood up, unable to remain seated before such a presence. The discovery was no longer a theory, it was an unfolding, bright reality. The pixels began to form a shape that defied every law of physics. Part 2 was over, and the true revelation was finally about to begin. The screen transitioned from darkness into a high-definition golden radiance. As the image stabilized, the friends gasped at what appeared on the screen. It was a collection of coordinates that didn't match any known city today. Carlo had mapped out points of light that seemed to exist between worlds. These were locations where the veil between heaven and earth was thin. They stared at the mathematical precision of these spiritual entry points. If this story touched you, leave a like as the mystery deepens now. In the center of the map, a folder titled Future Witnesses appeared. When they opened it, they saw a list of names they didn't recognize. Beside each name was a specific date, some of them years into the future. The realization hit them like a physical blow to the chest and soul. Carlo wasn't just recording the past, he was predicting the path ahead. He had identified people who would experience miracles long after his death. The discovery of the unknown was beginning to rewrite their sense of time. They clicked on a name and a small window displayed a live feed. The camera seemed to be hovering in a hospital room in another country. They watched as a light, identical to the one in the file, appeared. A sick person, unaware of the camera, suddenly sat up in their bed. The friends realized they were watching a miracle happen in real time. Carlo had created a digital window into the workings of the divine. Subscribe so you don't miss stories like this as the truth unfolds. The files also contained recordings of Carlo speaking directly to the camera. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with a fire that was eternal. "I am writing this code so you will know that God is online," he said. His voice was steady, despite the heavy breathing caused by his illness. He explained that the internet was meant to be a highway to heaven. He had found a way to use the network to track spiritual grace. The friends felt as if they were standing on holy, consecrated ground. They found a subdirectory containing thousands of high-resolution images. These were not photos of people, but of what looked like molecular structures. Underneath, Carlo had written, "The DNA of a miracle found in the bread." He had been analyzing the scientific properties of Eucharistic miracles. The data showed patterns that defied every known law of modern biology. The friends realized that Carlo was a scientist of the supernatural world. Stay until the end, because the ending changes everything for your life. As they scrolled, they found a file that specifically mentioned them. It contained a personal message for each friend in the small room. He knew they would be the ones to find the hidden, secret file. He spoke of their futures, their struggles, and their eventual triumphs. It was a letter from a friend who was already seeing the finish line. The intimacy of the moment broke their hearts and healed them simultaneously. They were being guided by a saint who used code to reach back. One friend discovered a hidden audio track playing in the background. It was a frequency that seemed to calm their nervous systems instantly. Carlo had researched the effects of sacred sounds on the human heart. He called it the frequency of mercy, a gift for those in deep pain. As the sound filled the room, the grief they felt began to transform. They weren't just discovering a file, they were discovering a new reality. Comment if this message spoke to you as we see the unseen. They found a document that outlined a prophecy for the digital age. Carlo warned that the screen could become a prison or a great cathedral. He left instructions on how to use technology to heal the lonely. He saw a world where people were connected by wires but distant in spirit. His hidden file was actually a manual for the soul in the new century. The friends felt a heavy responsibility to share this light with everyone. They were the guardians of a secret that could save a generation. The discovery of the unknown reached its peak when a 3D model appeared. It was a representation of the heart of the world, as Carlo saw it. It pulsed with every prayer said across the globe in real time. Each time a person prayed, a new pixel of light joined the structure. The friends watched as the heart grew brighter and stronger before them. Carlo had found a way to visualize the power of the collective faith. The beauty of the image was so intense that they had to look away. The final part of the discovery was a countdown clock on the screen. It wasn't counting down to a death, but to a great spiritual awakening. Carlo had calculated the moment when the world would need this most. The friends looked at the time remaining and felt a surge of urgency. They were part of a plan that was set in motion years ago in secret. The discovery was over, but the message was only beginning to play out. Part 3 had revealed the what, but Part 4 would reveal the how. The screen suddenly shifted to a simple white background with black text. It was a letter addressed to the generation of the Great Transition. Carlo began to speak about a time when the world would feel lost. He described a future where truth would be hidden behind many veils. Yet he promised that the light would always find a way through. His words felt like they were written specifically for this very hour. If this story touched you, leave a like for this timeless message. He spoke of the digital desert, a place where souls would go thirsty. He predicted that people would have 1,000 friends but feel alone. The screen is a mirror, he wrote, reflecting what you carry inside. The friends felt a chill as they realized he saw our world clearly. Even from his hospital bed, he was looking decades into the future. He wasn't just a boy of his time, he was a messenger of eternity. His vision was a map for those wandering in the dark of today. In the middle of the text, a voice recording began to play automatically. It was Carlo's voice, but it sounded older, more resonant and deep. Time is a relative concept when you are close to the tabernacle. He explained that the messages he left were timed to unlock slowly. The file was programmed to reveal different truths as the years passed. What they were seeing now was only the first layer of his testament. Subscribe so you don't miss stories like this as the layers unfold. He mentioned a specific global event that had not yet occurred then. He described a moment of great silence that would fall upon the earth. During this silence, he said, the heart of humanity would be tested. Do not look for the living among the dead, his voice whispered. He urged his friends to become digital apostles in the coming storm. The weight of the prophecy made the room feel electric and charged. They realized they were holding the script for a future yet to come. Carlo then detailed the 5 pillars of the soul for the modern age. He explained how to protect the mind from the noise of the world. Each click is a choice, he warned. Each scroll is a direction. He gave practical advice on how to find God in a world of pixels. The friends began to take notes, realizing the value of this manual. It was a message beyond time, a bridge built with love and code. Stay until the end, because the ending changes everything for your life. The file then showed a series of faces that would appear in the news. These were world leaders and influencers who had not yet risen to power. Carlo had circled their names with notes on how to pray for them. He saw the spiritual chess match being played on a global scale. The friends were stunned by the accuracy of his political intuition, but he reminded them that the real battle was fought in the heart. The crown belongs to the one who serves the least, he reminded. He shared a secret about the time of mercy that was currently ending. He said that the window for a great return was starting to close now. "Do not wait for a sign, for you are the sign," the text read. The urgency in his message was palpable, vibrating through the monitor. He was calling the world to a radical, immediate change of direction. The friends felt the need to act, to speak, and to share this light. Share this with someone who needs to hear this urgent call today. The message then turned to the mystery of the eternal present. Carlo explained that in the Eucharist, time and space simply vanish. "When I am before the altar, I am with you in your future," he said. This was how he could see what was coming for his dear friends. He was standing in a place where all moments are visible at once. The discovery was no longer about a computer, but about a portal. They were talking to a friend who had found the exit from time. He left a specific instruction for a final transmission to be made. It was a code that needed to be broadcasted to the entire world soon. "This is the antidote to the virus of indifference," he called it. The friends looked at the string of characters, not knowing how to use it. But they felt a deep confidence that the path would be made clear. Carlo had thought of everything, leaving nothing to human chance. Comment if this message spoke to muted hearts seeking the truth. As the chapter of the message ended, the screen began to glow blue. The text faded, leaving only a single image of a glowing white door. "The message is not in the words, but in the path," was the end. The friends sat in awe, feeling as if they had traveled through years. The message beyond time was now engraved upon their very souls. They knew they could never return to the lives they lived before. Part 4 was the warning, and Part 5 would be the miracle itself. As the final words of the message faded, the screen began to pulse. A rhythmic light, like a beating heart, filled the small, dark room. The friends noticed that the broken lamp in the corner suddenly flickered. Without being plugged in, the bulb stayed lit with a steady glow. The air grew cool and sweet, smelling of lilies and fresh rain. They realized the code wasn't just data, it was carrying a presence. If this story touched you, leave a like for this amazing miracle. One of the friends had suffered from a chronic pain for many years. As he touched the computer desk, he felt a sharp, warm sensation. The pain that had defined his daily life simply vanished in seconds. He moved his arm with a freedom he had forgotten was even possible. They looked at the monitor and saw his name glowing in a gold box. Carlo had programmed a blessing into the software for his dear friends. The miracle in the code was reacting to their very physical needs. The computer started to process a sequence that looked like human DNA. On the screen, they saw a strand of light being repaired and healed. "The Creator is the ultimate programmer," a text box suddenly appeared. The software was showing them how faith can restructure our reality. They watched in silence as complex biological equations solved themselves. Every line of code seemed to be a prayer for the healing of the world. Subscribe so you don't miss stories like this, for the power is real. Suddenly, the speakers emitted a sound that wasn't a recorded voice. It was a harmony of thousands of voices singing in a perfect union. The sound didn't come from the hardware, but from the air itself. They felt their minds cleared of every worry and every dark thought. The code had unlocked a frequency that connected them to the divine. It was a digital Pentecost, a moment of understanding without words. They were witnessing the intersection of technology and the Holy Spirit. Outside the house, the neighbors gathered, pointing at the night sky. The same blue light from the computer was reflecting in the clouds. A perfect circle of clarity formed in the mist above Carlo's home. Birds that usually sleep at night began to sing a song of joy nearby. The miracle was spilling out of the digital world into the physical one. Carlo's hidden file was acting as a beacon for the entire neighborhood. Stay until the end, because the ending changes everything for your life. The friends noticed that their cell phones were also reacting to the file. Messages from long-lost relatives began to pop up on their screens. Old conflicts were being resolved by simple, sudden, "I forgive you" texts. The code was spreading through the network like a virus of pure love. It was bypassing firewalls of hatred and breaking down digital walls. Carlo had created a masterpiece that ignored the limits of the earth. The miracle in the code was an invitation to a new way of living. They saw a map of the local hospital appear on the bright screen. Specific rooms were highlighted with the same glowing blue light. Later, they would learn that every patient in those rooms recovered. The doctors would call it a statistical impossibility the next day. But the friends knew it was the result of a boy's final, secret work. Carlo was using the internet to deliver grace to those who suffered. Share this with someone who needs to hear about this divine power. The youngest friend reached out and typed a name into the search bar. It was the name of a person he had been praying for quite a while. Immediately, the screen showed a video of that person waking up. They were miles away, but the connection was instant and very clear. The code was a bridge that ignored the laws of space and distance. Faith has no boundaries, the screen reminded them in bold letters. They wept with joy, realizing that no one is ever truly unreachable. The monitor then displayed a final, complex geometric shape of light. It was a fractal that seemed to contain the history of every soul. As they stared into it, they saw their own lives perfectly mapped out. They saw the moments where God had carried them through the fire. The code was revealing the hidden patterns of providence and grace. It was the most beautiful thing any human eye had ever witnessed. Comment if this message spoke to your soul during this revelation. As part 5 drew to a close, the computer began to cool down slowly. The miracles didn't stop, but the intense energy became a quiet peace. The friends were changed forever, their spirits renewed and on fire. They knew they had a mission to carry this light to the ends of Earth. The hidden file had revealed its power, but the journey was not over. Only one chapter remained to understand the full legacy of the boy. The final revelation was waiting, and it was the most important one. The computer screen began to dim, leaving only a soft white glow. In the center of the light, a final image of Carlo appeared. He wasn't behind a screen, but standing in a field of flowers. His smile was brighter than the sun, radiating a profound, deep peace. He looked at the camera as if he were looking at each viewer. This was his final legacy, a gift left for the digital generation. If this story touched you, leave a like to honor this memory. The computer is just a tool. His voice echoed through the room. The real connection happens when you open the door of your heart. The friends realized the hidden file was never about the technology. It was a way to lead them back to what truly matters in life. The code was a pointer to the Creator, the source of all light. Carlo's legacy was a call to live fully, even in a digital world. The mystery was solved, but the mission was just beginning today. He left a final folder named Your Turn on the main desktop. When they opened it, it was empty, save for a single blinking cursor. It was an invitation for them to write their own stories of faith. Carlo had provided the spark, but they had to carry the flame. They understood that the miracles they witnessed were just the start. The world was waiting for the light they now carried inside them. Subscribe so you don't miss stories that change the way you see. The friends stood up and joined hands in the center of the room. They felt a bond that was stronger than any physical or digital link. Carlo had brought them together to be the keepers of this secret. They promised to share the message of the hidden file with everyone. The room was no longer a place of mourning. but a place of birth. A new era of faith was starting in that small, humble apartment. The legacy of Carlo Acutis was now alive in their very breathing. They decided to leave the computer exactly as they had found it. The hidden file vanished from the drive, its purpose fully served. It had been a temporary bridge, a divine intervention in the code. They walked to the window and saw the first light of a new dawn. The world looked different, more vibrant and full of hidden meaning. Every person they saw was a soul worth saving and loving deeply. Share this with someone who needs to find their purpose today. As they walked out the door, the computer made one final sound. It was the sound of a notification, a message sent to the world. Across the globe, thousands of people felt a sudden urge to pray. It was the final transmission Carlo had programmed years before. A wave of peace began to move through the cables and the wires. The internet was becoming, for a moment, a cathedral of the spirit. The legacy was spreading, reaching hearts that were once so cold. We often look for miracles in the spectacular or the impossible, but Carlo showed us that a miracle can be found in a laptop. It can be found in a kind word or a prayer sent through space. His life was a short but intense flame that lit up the darkness. He proved that you don't need a long life to leave a mark. You only need a heart that is completely open to the divine. Stay until the end, because this final reflection is for you now. Now, as you listen to these words, think of your own hidden files. What secrets of love and faith have you kept locked away inside? Carlo is inviting you to open the folders of your own soul today. Do not be afraid of the light that is waiting to be released. You were made for more than just scrolling through a lonely life. You were made to be a beacon of hope in a world that is lost. Comment if this message spoke to your heart and changed you. The story of the computer and the file is a reminder of eternity. Death is not a shutdown, but a transition to a much faster server. Carlo is still online, still praying, and still guiding the young. His legacy is not found in the hardware, but in your response. Will you be a digital apostle or a silent observer of the light? The choice is yours, and the time to decide is right now. May the peace of the programmer of God be with you always. We conclude this journey with a prayer of gratitude for Carlo's life. Thank you for joining us in uncovering this mystery of faith and code. Go out and be the miracle that someone else is searching for today. The screen may go black, but the light of the soul never fades away. The hidden file is now open in your heart. Go and share the truth. This is the end of the story, but the beginning of your new path. God bless you, and may your connection to Him always be strong.